Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. Over the last year, Darcy James Argue has been on many critics as well as jazz fans' lists as best recording of 2013. In fact, his current album, Brooklyn Babylon, really showcases this band leader as well as his composition style within a new contemporary style of big band arranging. Over the last 7 years, Darcy has done things outside of the box. He's raised money to fund his projects as well as he's changed the scope on how big band music is heard as well as sounded both here and abroad. I sat down early with him at the Jazz Gallery here in New York City and we discussed the concept of his new album. We talked about how easy and how hard it is for him to, one, put together and conduct and arrange for a big band at a time when many big bands aren't recording and touring across the country, as well as talk about some of his major influences and what really inspires him to write. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of Darcy James Argue's Secret Society, live at the Jazz Gallery here in New York City on the Pace Report. Darcy, I have to really commend you on, one, your compositions and also how you're changing the scope of how a big band is presented in this generation.
Well, thank you. I think big band is something that everyone, I think, tries to reinvent in every generation because there's enough crazy people who want to keep doing it despite all the obstacles. And then the questions become how to keep it fresh musically, but also like how to present what you're doing in a way that feels like it belongs to the to the 21st century.
You know, you are a pianist and you are now a composer, and in a perfect world, musicians say, okay, if they're a guitarist or a saxophonist, they take that trade seriously. But you came out of the gate and said, I'm just going to be a composer and big band arranger.
Right. Well, I was a pianist for a while, all through my undergrad years. When I was living in Montreal, I was playing a lot of piano. And even when I went to study composition with Bob Brookmeyer at New England Conservatory, we played piano a lot in our lessons together, and Bob was a great pianist. So I kept it up all the way until I moved to New York and started a big band, and that's when I really sort of realized, well, I got to make a choice. I really have to, if I'm going to do this big band, I really have to dedicate it to myself 100%, and that means I can't be, going out to jam sessions on piano and whatnot. I just have to choose, big band as my instrument. So that's the choice I made.
Now, explain the concept of the secret society, because now there's two elements to this. You call it steampunk, and we're going to go into that in a second. But also, this is based upon comic book figures or part of a comic book series, right?
Well, it's not based on anything in particular. It's not based on a particular comic book or anything like that, although I am a big comics fan, The name actually just kind of, when I was casting about for names for the big band, I knew I didn't want to call it, the Darcy James Argue Jazz Orchestra or the Darcy James Argue Large Ensemble. I wanted something a little bit different. And so I went through a whole bunch of names that had the connotation of like a large group. One was, but sort of a secretive group. So one of the rejected names was Witness Protection Program. But I took Secret Society because I just thought it kind of sounded cool, but also that it conveyed the vibe of like, look, if there were 3 people at our gig, it's not that nobody turned out; it said it was a secret, and the people who turned out were kind of in on something that the rest of the world was not. So it kind of came from that. And the steampunk thing, that was, it's funny how long that has sort of stuck and like how prominent that has been in talking about the band, because it started off just like kind of as a whim. Like back when MySpace was a thing, you had to, fill in the little blank on the MySpace thing of what your music sounds like. It's like, oh, I don't know. Steampunk big band, and I really hadn't put a huge amount of conscious thought behind that. And then I started getting asked about it. So, well, what did you mean by that? And so I had to kind of reverse engineer. Well, what did I mean? Like, why did I gravitate towards that? And I think it was because of the idea of, steampunk as a literary movement and as kind of like, as something that happens in fiction and in fashion and a social movement and in people kind of creating inventions and all of that kind of stuff. The whole idea of it is like the creative use of anachronistic technology and kind of rethinking our relationship to kind of old-fashioned or obsolete forms of technology. And, well, like, what's more obsolete than a big band, right? That's a musical technology that evolved to fill a particular need before there were PA systems everywhere. And so the people who are still working with big band now are not doing it like out of necessity to fill like a big hall for dancing. They're doing it because we just find the combination of that many instruments irresistible. And so we're trying to, repurpose it a little bit and make the big band do stuff that it wasn't originally designed to do.
touch upon everything and all music styles in your compositions and this big band. I wonder how all this works out.
Well, what's important to me is that whatever elements go into the music, that they feel like they're an organic part of the whole, you know. So I try really hard to avoid the sense of like pastiche, or like, you know, like here's the rock section and here's the, you know, here's the jazz section and they live separate lives, you know. Like whatever elements outside of jazz that I might be bringing in and trying to integrate into the music, I'm always looking for like the deeper similarities, you know, the stuff that is like embedded into the DNA of music that is common to it all. And to try and make those connections in maybe a more kind of subtle and less obvious way, and hopefully that creates a sense of coherence, and hopefully that creates a sense of voice in the end. That this is stuff that I've thought about and kind of processed and filtered through my own particular sensibilities, and then ideally it comes out sounding like me.
Who are some of your influences? Who are some of the people that influenced you to compose and write music?
You know, it's interesting. I was just thinking back to this. My parents were not musically inclined, and they didn't really have a lot of jazz records in their collection. But like one that they had that I heard at a really young age was First Time the Count Meets the Duke, you know, the double big band record, and the second track on that is a Thad Jones ballad called To You. And so I got the trifecta at a really early age, and you know, eventually I started playing trumpet in the junior high jazz band, and we played kind of like a simplified version of this Thad Jones chart called Us, and you know, and then the record was in the school library collection, so I went to check it out just to see, like, you know, all right, well, what is this? What is this supposed to sound like? And then, like, when I heard it, it's like, oh, all right. So then I just really connected with that and tried to get out all the Thad and Mel stuff that I could find, you know, in the local record stores. This is like pre-internet, you know, you had to go hunting, crate diving, and that kind of stuff to find it. But that made a huge influence, a huge impact on me, and it also led me to discover Bob Brookmeyer's music. And then, you know, much later in life, I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to study directly with Bob Brookmeyer, who was, you know, a key member of the Thad Mel Orchestra in the early years, and wrote some really amazing music for them, and then went on to write some really amazing music for the rest of his career. And just, you know, the 13-year-old me never would have suspected that I would have had that opportunity to get with someone like Brookmeyer, who had that, you know, lifetime of experience, of lived experience playing jazz and writing jazz. So, you know, those have been the most direct influences on me and on my writing. You know, of course, I've had the opportunity at various times to study with Jim McNeely in the BMI Jazz Composers Workshop. I took some lessons with Maria Schneider at some point, and with John Hollenbeck. But I've also really been very influenced by the music of my peers. I met some people when I was doing that BMI Jazz Composers Workshop who were writing such, you know, original and striking music. It really kind of turned my head around. One of them, his name is Joseph C. Phillips. Charisse Rogers is another one. And there was this Composers Federation that involved Jamie Begian and J.C. Sanford and Yumiko Tsunami. And it was really like, being in that workshop was a really great opportunity to kind of, you know, see the work and hear the work of other composers, kind of look over their shoulder and check out what they were doing. So that was also really valuable for me as I first moved to New York, to be part of this community of composers who were kind of all chasing the same thing in different ways.
You're relatively young. What do you give the next generation of jazz artists or musicians who want to start a big band? What are some of the things that you would bestow upon them to do something like this? Because this is a big feat for you.
Yeah, well, you know, if there are young musicians out there who want to start a big band, I feel really sorry for them. You know, it's a terrible, terrible habit to get into. It'll ruin your life. No, it is very difficult, and the BMI workshop is a really good resource because it's sort of this laboratory. It lets people kind of experiment and bring something in and try it out and get a sense of how it works with musicians. And if it didn't work, they can bring in something new the next time. And that's the most difficult thing about writing for big band is just the kind of reward to effort ratio is so skewed. You spend so long writing a piece, and it might be months and months writing this one piece before you can even hear a note of it. And so it's not the same kind of direct feedback you get when you are involved in a small group and can just get people together and play much more easily. So, it's a real challenge, but there's I hear these young composers coming up who are doing really incredible work, and they seem to be somehow managing to make it happen. There's this large ensemble series that happens every Monday night at the Tea Lounge in Brooklyn, and it's basically a new big band every Monday night. I think we're like 40, 50 big bands a year in that space, and almost all of them playing original music and really great stuff. So for me, when I see someone who is, someone young who is just, maybe just coming out of school and really drawn to this music, it's really inspiring that there's still interest, that there's still a desire to do something new with a jazz big band.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace. I'd like to personally thank the talented Darcy James Argue for his time, as well as the wonderful staff and management at the Jazz Gallery in New York City for their warm hospitality. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.